Hello, everyone. Just finished watching Beef. It's on Netflix. It's a 10 episode series. Um, First reaction is that it was pretty intense, and towards the end, some spoilers. Is that it created a lot of moments, philosophical moments, where you think about life and the meaning of it. The void that they keep talking about is something that as you get older, start realizing just how everything just fades in terms of whether it's riches, people, things around you. At the end, what's really fulfilling for you is the connection between the people that you're with. It was a really interesting story as they just opposed the two characters, main characters, Amy Lau and I believe his name is Danny. Both growing up in different environments, and the inner struggles, fabrications of stories that they made up in their minds. But at the same time, it made it really human. It made them people that you can relate to at some point. There was a lot of cursing, violence, and inappropriate moments for younger children or kids to watch. Definitely not recommended for younger people. But for adults and maybe more mature audiences, I think you can understand the intricacies of it all. And the beginning was very complicated, a lot of stories interwoven, and some silly moments as you think about why are they so mad at each other over something so silly in the beginning with the car scene and everything, and why they go back and forth. And a lot of it is, I think, ego reactions, not able to control their their well-beings. But at the same time, you notice that every character seems to have their own story, especially the ones that were more well developed. From even the brother, the church people, everyone seems to have their own issues going on. Um, and sometimes you think that the more money you have, then the less problems, but even the richest people have to keep buying things to fulfill their needs, but that then still not fulfill. Um, it makes you think about life a lot, makes you think about the story and how it develops into what it is. Even at the end, I mean, the ending was interesting. It felt like they were really connected to each other, but I think at the same time, living through death and life, we realize that at the end, when it's all said and done, they're lucky to be alive. And towards the end, there's a scene where they woke up from their dead, quote unquote, and then walked through the tunnel of light. And then Danny got shot by the husband, got to survive again. We don't know what happens at the end, but the symbolism, the images of being able to live through life and just live and understand the silliness, the humor behind it, and understand how, at the end of the day, as they call it, a shit show, but at the same time, it's one of those things that you just gotta laugh with humor as they live through death, right? Rise from the dead, so to speak. They could have ended with them both dying, but for a show like this, I think it's more satisfying to see that they're able to survive, and learn from their lessons. And I'm curious to see if there will be a sequel to this after 2 years, because it'll be interesting how their life could have turned out now that they are basically risen from the dead. A lot of symbolisms, kind of like religious as well, when you think about rising from the dead, poking fun to some degree at life's meanings. And though Danny went to church and was the leading kind of like praise worship person, he questioned himself, like, is there a God, right? Because why would he make such dreadful situation happen to them? And maybe that's just how it is, as Amy said, to really suffer and to understand people's humanities. There's a lot of moments. One of the darker episodes was the episode about Amy's background. I think it's episode 8, and realizing how dark it was. Um, that image of, not sure what it was. I think it was her maybe dark side. That character was something that I was curious about what it really meant. Um, it's maybe her fears, maybe her inner turmoil, childhood trauma. It made her this. It made her kind of like question a lot of her decisions in life and how she had to keep everything hidden. How she, at the end, really just want to be loved and seen. And then Danny, the same capacity. Not being acknowledged by his parents, feeling bullied throughout his life, and having to create a certain persona. You can understand how the characters became who they are. And as you reflect on your own life, or as I reflect on my own life, I think about what caused me to be who I am right now in this capacity and who I am. And to really know a person and why we react the way we do or decide what we do has a lot to do with our upbringings. And also realizing that, there's a way to change it. There's a really powerful scene at the end, the ending, where, Amy was talking about how work doesn't fulfill her. Um, her family doesn't really fulfill her. Even her daughter, which she thought was going to complete her, was very conditional. Like, she felt like everything wasn't really filling her life. And then somehow that last scene where they were in each other's minds, Danny and Amy, that's where they found out, somehow felt connected the most. I felt like that was one of the most touching scenes in the whole series. Um, I gotta say it was very thought provoking, very engaging, very binge-worthy because just basically watch it in one whole day. Um, and they're short. They're like 30 minutes each episodes, so you feel like watching a long movie that has a lot of intricacies going on. One of my favorite characters actually is Isaac, I believe, the cousin of Danny. He brought a lot of street cred to him, and even though I had a lot of questions about his character and what entail, he brought a lot of humor as well, and crazy ideas. I also really like, I think the husband, George. In many ways, I can relate to his character. I felt like his character was quite frail, and maybe as you think about how he often had to compare himself to his dad and the disappointment that he felt growing up from his mom, the judging of it, it really impacted his life. Even second guessing everything that he does about asking, Danny, or what was his other name in the show? Anyways, he had another persona that Danny had in being friends with George. Um, that was interesting. I mean, I think it was episode 6 or something like that where he became his best friend, quote unquote, and a lot of back and forth as hence this beef. Um, they had one scene, I think it's episode 3, more or less, where Danny was cooking beef at the poolside. One of the few references they had on the actual beef, but you know, when you first think about this movie, you don't or series, you don't really understand so much in the beginning why they're acting the way they do. The turning point was, when they did the origin story, the backstory, and you can understand the character a lot more. And so, overall, I do feel like it gives you a good glimpse on human beings and why we act the way we do, on people's stories. Sometimes from a simple backing up and flipping on each other, the parking and crazy car chasings, and from people's betrayals and people, like Naomi's character is a classic example of someone that looks really friendly from the outside, but was trying to betray Amy, trying so jealous of her the whole time. Even at the end, oh, that scene where she was in the panic room with closing the door on the Forster lady. That was very sad. I think one of the saddest scenes in the movie. But I think overall the acting was great. The story had good pacing and it was engaging, intriguing. One of the best series I've seen on Netflix. And you know, yeah, overall I enjoy it, and I thank my son for recommending it to me, and also heard from other coworkers as well that saw it and were talking about it last year, I think. All right, this is my raw reaction to the Beef on Netflix. Enjoy.